How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Boylite Hobby Time. I wanted to make something with balsa wood this week because balsa wood is awesome. And initially I had thought about making a mine shaft and building a monster to sneak up on one of these unsuspecting miners. I will probably still do that at some point. But this week I opted to recreate this Colorado landmark. Aptly named for its location in Crystal, Colorado, the Crystal Mill was originally made to supply compressed air to the local mining equipment. It used an underwater turbine to create the compressed air. My mill is not going to be creating compressed air. I think it'll be making electricity or something. To start things off, I cut up some of that balsa wood we were just talking about. The basic structure of this building is two little Snoopy dog houses glued to each other. One is slightly smaller than the other. I think it's like a mud room or something. Not everything is going to be completely accurate to the real Crystal Mill. This is in my imaginary West, so some creative liberties were taken. Balsa wood is great because you can use a steel brush and bring out that grain, and it looks really, really good when it's painted. I like the fact that you can use super glue on balsa wood. A similar material in terms of workability is foam, but if you put super glue on foam, it melts. So that's one of the advantages of balsa wood. There are pros and cons to both, but that's one of the pros. I made sure to add a window with some cross-stitching mesh to act as the frame. Then I assembled all of the pieces together, and I gave them a little extra support by sticking them down to a base, and then I glued on the roof. And that was the main structure done. I glued together a few pieces of wood to make a nice large base. Then I cut out some styrofoam and I started stacking that up. I scratched up the pieces of foam with a steel brush to help them stick a little better. And then I began blocking out the main form of the landscape. And then I got out the handheld hot wire, started carving away at the foam. I carved out a little flat spot. I wanted the smaller structure to sit just slightly lower than the big one. And then I glued in that little chute. To be honest, I'm not really sure what it was originally for, but I am going to be adding a ladder to it. I then frosted the whole thing in the plaster, paint, and Mod Podge mix, making sure to work it into all of the little nooks and crannies to keep it safe during the priming. After that was dry, I used some isopropyl alcohol and watered down glue, which I spread out in the riverbed. I sprinkled in some pebbles and some coarse-grained sand to create the riverbed texture. I then glued down the structure of the building, and it was time to start adding the details. I made a little platform to glue to the front of the building, and I added some supports to that so it could hold the weight of a human at 1:72 scale. I borrowed some ladders from my favorite meme page, Sark Bro, and I added a little platform just above the water and one more ladder for anyone who needed to get out of the water. Then added some greeblies to bring this thing into the imaginary West, including some antennas and of course some guitar strings, which I bent into some crazy shapes to connect various details to each other. And in order to stay OSHA compliant, I added a handrail to the balcony. To make some shingles, I cut some cardstock into thin strips, and then I took each of those and I cut little slits all the way down the length, removing a little bit here and there to make it look a little bit more like shingles. And if you want to see some impressive shingles, go watch Real Terrain Hobbies' completed tavern video. It's very impressive. After all the paper was on, I covered it in a matte Mod Podge to make it a little bit more durable. I threw together a little turbine using some bits and pieces. I sat that in the river and then I connected it to the building using a little pipe. And that was the construction done, so I took it outside and I primed it. After the primer had fully dried, I began the painting. After the paint was all dry, it was time to pour the resin. I used some acrylic to make a little barrier, which I hot glued to the front and also to the back. And then I mixed up the resin. I used a shallow pour crystal clear resin, mixed one part of the resin to one part of the hardener, and then I mixed in some brown, green, and blue pigments to get the watercolor I was looking for. Once that had been thoroughly mixed, I poured it into the mold. I popped all the bubbles as they rose with a butane torch. Also poured the resin on the top section of the diorama. I made a little UV resin waterfall off camera, and I left that to cure. This is the gentleman that operates the little watermill. In his spare time, he likes to go fishing, and he has the perfect spot for it. He's a repurposed stagecoach driver, so he is dressed a little bit formal to just be fishing, but he was the only character that I had in this pose that worked. After the resin had cured, I used some isopropyl alcohol to help release the hot glue from the acrylic. That worked really well. That was a tip that I got from someone a while ago. Used an X-Acto blade to clean up those edges, and it was time to add the fall colors. It's fall here in Colorado as I'm recording this, so there are a lot of trees that actually look like this right now. I added some white water paint over top of the water everywhere that it needed it. I added my little fisherman. I painted the sides of the diorama with black 3.0, and I called it good. That is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Shout out to all of my patrons for your continued support of this channel. Appreciate you all very much. Have an awesome week, everyone. I will see you next time.